I want to become an environmental artist, with a background of being a 3D generalist. The way I'm going to show off my work is by making two scenes. One of these scenes will be an original concept, while the other one will be based off an existing IP. I feel like this is a good way to show off my range, as it shows I can work creatively and work with an existing project without sacrificing the art style. Looking at a few job postings, I understand that I have to have experience in a few game engines, such as standards like Unity and Unreal Engine. I also need to understand the importance of optimization for these game engines. Luckily, I was made a programmer for my last two games using Unity and Unreal Engine, as seen in my portfolio website. I tried to make the home screen for my portfolio stand out and show what I am capable of. I put some finished pieces on the right hand side while showing what I have experience in. This shows off my work and experience in an easily digestible layout. When making the 3D art page, I made sure to have eye-catching thumbnails so employers can see what I have done immediately, without wasting time. It also gives an incentive to click on the art to see how it was made. Each page makes sure to explain what I have done and have developmental screenshots on how I put together the scene. The first scene will be going over my Fallout project piece. I mainly put this together to get better at lighting and set dressing. This is because I want to show my ability to work as a 3D generalist and an environmental artist. Firstly, the inspiration for why I'm doing a Fallout project piece. I went into this assignment wanting to create something Fallout as it had a big impact on why I wanted to become a game designer in the first place. The main piece of inspiration was from this Fallout 4 artwork. It was made by the official Bethesda studio. I wanted to replicate the feeling that I got from its artwork and put it into my own work. These Fallout artworks were mainly gotten so I could nail the aesthetic of Fallout. Before starting the project, I had to do my research. I looked online, went in-game, tried to figure out how they made the world look like it does. One thing I found out was that this time, PBR materials were only just getting put in games. Fallout does use physically based rendering, or more commonly known as PBR. Not all assets or materials were converted to PBR at launch though. This is why some developers have noted that the visuals aren't as developed as they could be. To start production on this Fallout piece, I made a concept sketch of how things should look in a blockout. This sketch would help me make the perspective and make sure the room wasn't too big or too small. The first blockout was made using this sketch and the main inspirations. The blockout is useful as it meant I could play around with the design and get it how I wanted it to look, without putting too much effort in case it goes bad. I limited the amount of light rays I could hit the scene using the light rays tab in Blender. This allows it to get a closer look to the games. I wanted the scene to feel as close to Fallout as possible. For optimization purposes, I made things like the notes on the walls, bushes, posters, and magazines use one-sided geometry with an opacity mask texture. This technique works especially well on the dead bushes, which also use normal maps. For the ground in front of the garage, to make it look good, I used a height map given from the ground texture to make it look as good as possible. Displacement is a great tool as it automatically adjusts the height of certain parts of geometry to fit the texture of a height map. This would be great in game as it can cover displacement with a certain distance away from the player. Using reference images, I was able to create a power armor set. I had to make sure the power armor was right, as it is the main focus of the scene. Here are a few renders of this scene to show the progression. I made sure to document each render so I have something to look back on and see my progress. At this point, I wanted to focus on the lighting, to try to show off all the detail in the scene. The problem with most of these renders was the exposure. However, I feel confident that I fixed these issues towards the end of the project. Towards the end, I also used Photoshop to see how much better I can make the scenes look. Using this, I implemented it into Wallpaper Engine for the absolute final render. This is the final render. It is available on Wallpaper Engine and can be accessed with a link in the description. I separated each layer, the bushes, can, and the main image, so I can give each motion without impacting the rest of the image. The second scene was made for a different purpose. It isn't meant to look spectacular, or even show much at all. This scene was made to show off my ability to work my models into a game engine, and to show off how well I do my topology. This scene was mostly made using seamless textures I made on Substance Painter. These seamless textures are on most things in the scene, from the ground to the ceiling. Some parts like the stair supports and doors are separated. This is to give them more attention and more detail. This scene is fully playable in a game engine, and the lighting works well with it. I am currently using Unreal Engine 5 for this example, but it would work just as well in Unity. Here is some Unreal Engine 5 gameplay of the scene. This scene would represent a small portion of the game if it were built up fully. This is only a stairwell, but it gives good proof of concept that it would work as a full game. I wanted to show off my different areas of expertise. For example, with this scene, I didn't make everything separately. I tried to make everything as modular as possible. Using modular models helps speed up the development time. This is because they can be reused and combined in different ways to make something unique. It is also beneficial as it means you don't have to redo a bunch of systems like collisions. Although this scene isn't very technically impressive, it has allowed me to learn better ways to create modular assets, which is very handy for an environmental artist to learn. It has also allowed me to learn the best ways to integrate assets into game engines. For the scene itself, I wanted to showcase a more dim-lit room, only lit from the outside. Taking full advantage of bounce rays in real time using global illumination. This scene uses tricks to make it look even better. It uses post-process effects like vignettes and noise, while taking full advantage of a horror aesthetic. It is dimly lit, as if this were a real game. I would want to direct the player to the light sources, while only giving them just enough light to get them there. I made sure it wasn't too dimly lit by adding a grey cube map to give a static amount of light everywhere on the scene. This scene is good for game engines compared to the last, due to the seamless textures. Since the scene only has to load a limited amount of textures, it can work faster and not use as much memory. This allows frame rates to be even higher. It is also the reason why a lot of games use seamless textures, especially on the terrain. My original vision for this scene was a rustic cabin in the middle of the woods, having a large focus on a single light flame in the middle of the room. The reason I stopped this idea was because I wasn't technically skilled enough for the VFX. Therefore, I switched to a simpler version of the same scene, while focusing more on the game engine side of 3D art instead of the visual side. The reason for this change is because I realised most game studios don't care much about single renders of assets, but much more care about how well these assets can be introduced into their own games. Sure, it can look visually beautiful in renders, but if you can't make it work in game, it's not very impressive, especially when you realise most people will see it inside of the game. Here are a few screenshots of a scene in development in Blender, and it also shows the wireframe before going into Unreal Engine 5. All of this was done in aspirations of showing what I am capable of as an environmental artist. I can work well with a game engine. Even if this isn't enough for a job, I can keep working on my skills and develop indie games, as I have a functional know-how on how to make a stunning environment and how to program in features. Therefore, no matter what happens, I know I have a future ahead of me. From now on, I will be developing a simple indie game to help build my portfolio, as many job listings require a game published, meaning I will hopefully have a better chance of being accepted, and it is a great way to keep improving.